Now, we couldn't talk about all the crazy news that has happened in the world of baseball without talking to our man, one of our co-hosts over at the Sports Cubicle, the one and only Devin Tingle. Devin, what's going on, buddy?
Hanging in there, Mike. I just got back from this lovely little place called the DMV. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yeah,
it makes me want to be back in the basement of the basement at CPT right now.
Yeah, you mean you didn't have a great time at Satan's butthole?
Oh no, I'm literally. I think I spent more time on hold on the phone, but like just waiting in line to get in.
Yeah, magical times, just like it's been magical times in baseball. We have the lockout. The Cubs made a big move. The White Sox kind of staying put for the time being. So I kind of want to take this time to talk to Devin. We're not going to get a chance to talk to Dev live on the show on Sunday, where you can check us out on WCPT 820 AM, the Sports Cubicle with Devin Tingle, Dan Marver, Paul Shivari, and myself, Mike Mercado. So we thought we'd have a little fun, do a separate video, and talk to Dev about some of his feelings of what's been going on. I think we're going to start up with the team you root for, Dev, and is how are you feeling about the moves or lack thereof for the White Sox and this team that we think might be a starting pitcher away, a second baseman away, an outfielder, a couple of plug and play pieces, but needing some pieces? What were your thoughts about the White Sox inactivity?
I mean, I don't think there was really any inactivity. They did re-sign Leury Garcia. They picked up that reliever from Houston, and they signed Martinez, starting pitcher, to a one-year single-A deal. So I don't know what you're talking about lack of inactivity, Mercado.
So do you think it's more a thing of how optics look, that they didn't go get a Max Scherzer, that they weren't in on some of these bigger names, a Carlos Correa? Do you think it's more of an optical thing for White Sox fans or baseball fans that it seems the White Sox really haven't done much? Because they do need help at the front end of their rotation. And obviously with this lockout ahead of us, you don't think that it kind of has that feeling as if they hadn't made a big move? Because those are moves, but we wouldn't say they're huge moves.
Absolutely. I would not say they're huge moves. My big thing is, though, is what are the White Sox going to do? Because it's pretty clear Michael Kopech is going to be moved from the bullpen to the starting rotation if Carlos Rodon doesn't, get signed by some, lesser free agent deal. I don't think it's going to happen. I got a huge feeling he's going to go to the Angels or some other team that needs starting pitching. But I do feel the thing is, unless they're going to trade Dallas Keuchel, I don't really see any moves being made by the White Sox in the starting pitching game, because as we've learned from the White Sox 3 years ago, they don't go after the big name pitchers. Like when Garrett Cole is a free agent, I think the White Sox even made it clear, like, we're not going to spend, $350 million on a starting pitcher. And again, that's just, through my history of being a fan of the team. Do I think it would have been nice to see them go after Max Scherzer? Absolutely. I feel even if you can, sign a Clayton Kershaw to a somewhat smaller, short-term deal, but for a decent amount of money. But let's be real, they're most likely going to go for someone like a Verlander, I think, who's got that experience. Personally, I think at this point, it might be smarter to see if you could trade someone like Dallas Keuchel for a young pitching prospect, maybe a second second baseman here. But again, as I've been saying, this team, the time frame for this team, I think they only have maybe 2-3 more years tops. It's still at World Series contention. So if I had to really guess, I mean, maybe prospects aren't the best way to go here, but if you can get someone, maybe like a solid B or C guy for someone like a Keuchel, I think that might be the way to go here. But again, with the upcoming lockout, there's not really going to be any trades anytime soon.
Do you think they're going to be active and be a big player for some of these big names when and if we get past this lockout?
I'd like to say that, but I don't think they're going to go after any of these, super big names. I think maybe Verlander would be the biggest name they go for here. And I mean, there's definitely, especially in the second baseman rotation here, I made some notes. Like one of the guys I'd really like to see, Chris Taylor, I think, be for phenomenal second baseman, especially since he does have the sort of utility role to him. But again, I really don't see them going after your A-listers. Maybe one B, but mostly a few C+ guys.
What did you think about the Cubs signing Marcus Stroman, a guy I think the White Sox would have been interested in if it wasn't for him, saying on his own social media that he would never play for a Tony La Russa. So him not going to the South Side, but ending up in the North Side on a team that nobody was really sure how they were going to spend some of their money. And a few hours before the lockout started, what were your initial thoughts when you saw Marcus Stroman signing with the Cubs over in the North Side?
Definitely confused. Because last year, it seemed like the Cubs were kind of aiming for a rebuild here. I mean, hell, Patrick Wisdom, I think, was in the contention for Rookie of the Year. So it seemed like this team was definitely putting a lot of its money in the young guys. Now, they went and spent a lot of money on Stroman. This could mean, okay, this team wants to be a playoff contender right off the bat, or maybe they're looking for that one veteran pitcher to help a lot of the younger guys here. Because I've told you, the Cubs hitting, they'll score 16 runs in a game, but they'll give up 18 and lose the thing. Definitely the pitching is what needed something there. So it's either Stroman is there to make this team a contender, or Stroman's there to help teach these kids something. And, as I always say, there's nothing wrong with having, an old guy who's got the experience showing the kids they need to go. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Cubs do. I'm actually curious what you thought about that, because I'm a little torn. I thought this was a rebuild, but now it's looking more like, okay, maybe this, especially since they're talking about making more moves. It's very plausible the Cubs think they could be that contention team again. And, more power to them if they are. But I'm actually curious, what did you think about that signing, Mercado? And I know you were one of the guys who was devastated last year.
Yeah, it was definitely a rough time. We talked about it the entire time, whether it was on the Rewind Sports 60 or eventually on the Sports Cubicle. And I think this move kind of leaves the door open for two different things. You're either contention and retooling, not necessarily rebuilding, or you're able to flip a Marcus Stroman because it's a 2-year deal with the option of a third. It's about $75 million. And for somebody at his caliber, that's a steal. So if you're able to flip that for a bunch of prospects, it's something you can do. So I think they're going to have their cake and eat it too. The real question is what you're saying is we'll find out when the lockout is over. Do they go after Carlos Correa? Where are they in a Trevor Story? Those type of scenarios. How fast do they want to do this? We saw it with a Boston where teams are going to have that one bad season and then they're going to try to come right back and bounce back. And that's why you're right. When we saw that breaking news of Marcus Stroman signing with the Cubs, super surprising when it was done, the amount of money and the way we were heading into that lockout. But it's going to be interesting, like you said, when everybody comes back, how serious these two organizations are moving forward. And we've been mentioning the lockout this entire time, and it's going to be something we talk about here on the show a bunch. And we'll start off with you, Devin, in this case. Thoughts on the MLB lockout, just in general?
I mean, as much as I am huge pro-union, it's very weird, a union where the minimum salary is $1 million per player. It's just kind of a little weird right off the bat. I mean, this is the first lockout since, 94, 95. Yeah. And, there's talk that this, again, we talked in 2020, well, not on the air, just kind of busting our thoughts. We want to have a season then. And it's like, here we go. It's like, if they can't get their thing together, there might not be a season this year. And there's a lot of talks, I took my notes here, pretty much understand like the old methods like of ending these lockouts and these player negotiations, it's not going to work this time around here. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to have to do here. Rob Manfred says he's like, we can't use the same old playbook. And it's like, clearly you can't because it's not working here. But again, I'm trying to figure out what the answer is here. And yeah, there are certain things that they want that I'm not sure they're ever going to get. Like the MLB, the owners are trying to make it so you can't tank anymore. I'm like, you can never prove a team's tanking. Sometimes they're just bad. That's my big one. But again, are we going to get like, something I've been saying baseball needs for years, a salary cap. And I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be thrown in, especially since they want more money here. But it'll be very interesting to see here, though. I'm hoping, I'm staying optimistic, hoping that within the next month, so by like January 1st, we have a pretty much a straight deal set, so we can kind of move forward the season. But right now, it's like baseball is going to be taking a little bit of a hold. I'm staying optimistic, but I could see this lasting close to spring training almost. And I do think we will have a season this year. But I got a feeling with just everything in the state of the world, with COVID still being really relevant on top of that too, because there's going to be some safety player precautions, especially this year, that you just have to add in just because the timing we're in right now, rather safe than sorry. So I'm staying optimistic that there will be a season this year, but if there isn't, I won't be 100% surprised.
I don't think baseball can afford not only to not have a season, not have a World Series. I think right now they're not missing any games. You're not really missing anything but a few free agency, big moves, so you could survive this. And I think you bring up an interesting point to see if the catalyst to a lot of this is a league minimum when it comes to your salary. I don't know if they're ever going to do a salary cap, but I think you have to have minimums of your team needs to spend this amount of money, because you can't have these teams putting out $40 million rosters and then flipping them and doing that continuously to a bunch of markets, to half the league that is taking. And you bring up a really interesting point in that matter. But let's move on a little bit when it comes to the future of baseball. You mentioned that you don't know if they're going to start by spring training or whatnot. If you had to guess right now, Are we in for the long haul? Is this going to be something that around the holidays is fixed? Do you think this is something both the players and the owners want, where we realize that you don't have to play a full 162? You play half a season and get to the playoffs, you make all your money. Where do you think internally for a lot of these owners and players, they actually want this to play out?
I mean, quite frankly, I think the owners would like to wrap this up as soon as tomorrow morning. Because again, this is all money revenue they're losing. There's no season right now, but still, it's like they're not going to be making their big money. They're not going to be spending money. They're not going to be signing free agents or trading for guys and able to sell those new jerseys, new T-shirts like I'm wearing right now, even though it's not that new. Definitely, as we all know, the owners always want to get this stuff. I almost said a word I can't say on the radio. The owners want to get this stuff done tomorrow morning. And I got to say, I do, in certain cases, side with the owners here a little bit. Because, again, I said, what is it? The minimum salary is $1 million. And I'm pretty sure if our boss said, Mike, Devin, we're going to raise you guys up to $1 million per year, I don't think we'd be like, well, hold on, boss, man. That's just not enough here. But again, we don't travel and put our bodies through a lot of all this, miss holidays, et cetera, et cetera. I do kind of see there's certain things, though, and the owners are also looking out for the younger players, which I do kind of support here because, again, as we've learned, what happens in sports, your players get older and eventually they don't get as good. Some guys age like fine wine. Other guys age like, 90% of the league.
How big of a concern is that for you, knowing that the owners have that reputation of penny pinching and we've seen in the minor league level? Does that worry you where it's not just the salary of the players, but it's a lot of the other stuff too that we even in the media don't really cover?
Thank you for bringing that up because I didn't really think about that. Because let's be real here. On a scale of 9 to 10, how much 1 to 10? How much do you think the owners really care about their minor league teams? I'd say maybe a 4 or a 5 here. They don't. You ever been to a minor league game that it's never sold out? No. And you can get tickets for like $9 the day of. Walking up to the gate.
Yeah,
and you can get a soda for the same price there. It's kind of crazy the way they run here. So I mean, definitely something for these minor league guys because a lot of these guys are just kind of literally they're just trying to get their start here. I mean, you watch a spring training game. How many of these guys play there and then are back to back in groceries the next week because they didn't perform right? Definitely something for the minor leaguers, especially here. But again, I'm gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate. Do you think a guy who might be bagging groceries next week? How much do you do you think really he should get that bare $1 million minimum like some of the major leaguers do? So I mean, definitely something for when they make it to the majors, but some sort of thing for minor league guys, especially because a lot of them they're just guys just trying to get their start. And you and I both know we had to work our ass here, foot in the door in radio, and just baseball. It's got to be 10 million times more challenging, obviously, especially if you're an undrafted guy.
And in baseball, where it's just such a long haul to get to the majors, to get to that contract, I think that's why this is going to be a drag-out fight between the union and the owners. And I think optic-wise, even if you side with owners or you side with players, you side with the billionaires or the millionaires, right now, the optics of what baseball did by taking away the likeness of these players on the websites and just the pettiness of that letter that was sent out, that we spent so much money heading into this lockout and the players want more. But it's like, yeah, that was also a strategic move by you to make a bunch of these moves right before the lockout to say, look how much money we spent. But we're going to be covering this on the Sports Cubicle up until we finally get baseball back. It's been a pleasure to just jump on and talk with one of my main guys, one of my good buddies, one of the best dudes in the industry, one of my co-hosts on the Sports Cubicle, the one and only Devin Tingle. Devin, thank you for jumping on and having this little talk with us.
No problem, Mercado. Happy to jump on. And again, if you want to support the players here, take a picture of yourself and make it a black silhouette. And make that your Twitter profile because that's what we're doing in the MLB right now.
Devin Tingle, Mike Mercado, you're on the Sports Cubicle here on Sports for the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network.